Hello and welcome to your lesson on toxicity and reducing toxic burden. In this lesson, we are going to talk about what toxins are and why they're important, how toxins can be contributing to your health issues, how to reduce toxins in the home, and some safer product options. So, why is toxin reduction important? Because toxins cause disease. Yes, this is an opinion. It's a bold statement. But I do believe that physical toxins like metals and molds and plastics and pesticides and herbicides and emotional toxins that lead to nervous system dysregulation are combined what causes chronic disease in this world. That is a belief system I have developed over the last 12 years of working in this field. And I do believe that if you can detox, reduce toxicity in your body and your mind, that chronic disease is not an inevitable process. So one study from the Environmental Working Group, or the EWG, it was called the umbilical cord study. And this is where they commissioned 5 different laboratories to examine the umbilical cords of babies. And what they found was horrifying. They found over 200 carcinogenic chemicals in the newborns. 180 caused cancer, 217 are toxic to the brain and nervous system, and 208 cause birth defects or abnormal development. Some of these included BPA from plastics, mercury, lead, pesticides, and flame retardants. Some of these substances were even banned decades before, which blows my mind. So it just goes to show that once a toxin is in the environment, it can take decades for it to actually break down. They also found that concentrations of mercury in certain PBDEs were often higher in umbilical cord samples than in maternal samples. So there seems to be sort of a concentration that happens from the toxins from mom when she gives them to the baby. These are all have the potential to cause epigenetic changes, which we will talk about. So epigenetics is the idea that our genes can be turned off or turned on depending on our environmental circumstances. So DNA is what directs all activity within a cell. In order to create DNA, we need minerals as well as vitamin cofactors. Toxicity, especially something like heavy metal toxicity, can actually hijack DNA replication and cause epigenetic changes in the body. So when we're exposed to excessive amounts of toxicity, you can actually change the expression of your DNA, which is huge. So if you think these babies being born into this world with over 200 toxic chemicals, of course, we're going to see epigenetic changes. Of course, we're going to see higher incidence of childhood diseases like cancer and autism. But epigenetics are reversible. This is the amazing thing about our bodies, that if we give our bodies what they need and we take what the body doesn't need out, then our bodies function well for us. People often call me an alarmist, but before you call me an alarmist, let's look at some of these statistics straight from the CDC website. Now, 6 in 10 adults in the US have a chronic disease. 4 in 10 adults, 40%, have 2 or more chronic diseases. It's the leading driver of the nation's $3.5 trillion in annual healthcare costs. These are the top 7 chronic diseases that we share as adults in America. Cancer is one of the leading causes of death worldwide. 14 million cases annually, new cases annually. By 2030, it's estimated to be 23.6 million new cases annually. Approximately 40% will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. This is a US statistic. 40% of people with cancer in their lifetime. And it's the leading cause of death by disease among children. Autism rates in 2002, they were 1 in 150. 2012, 1 in 88. 2020, 1 in 36. And some people might argue, oh, we have better testing methods. We are identifying autism at an earlier age. and I call BS on that. Did you know anybody when you were, so I was born in 1984, and I don't know any children that had autism. Now I know many, many women whose children have autism. But isn't this a bit of an exaggeration? It's only a little bit of X substance. It's only a little bit of heavy metals. It's only a little bit of plastics. Well, is that true? Let's look at this scenario. You wake up in the morning, you sleep on a toxic mattress surrounded by toxic furniture, and you can actually measure the amount of formaldehyde in your bedroom by taking air samples. We actually did it in our bedroom once. There are flame retardants in your furniture. There is antimony. There is boric acid, PDBEs, formaldehyde, adhesives, solvents, and more. Then you go and you take a shower. And if you're using an unclean shampoo, you're exposed to, on average, 15 chemicals, including sodium lauryl sulfate and propylene glycol, which is a gasoline derivative. If you're using traditional deodorant, which has an average of 32 chemicals, then you're putting aluminum, a heavy metal, on your body every single day, which has correlations to the development of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, and breast cancer. Then if you paint your nails, you're getting exposed to on average 31 chemicals, one of which are phthalates, which are known to cause fertility issues and hormone disruption. And then you put on your makeup, which has on average 33 chemicals. Even clean makeup tends to have higher than normal level of chemicals, including iron oxides, which tend to give them their color. The body is not able to utilize that form of iron and builds up and becomes toxic in the tissues. And then perfumes, which are insanely toxic. It's just a chemical concoction that we pour onto our skin, which is incredibly porous. The benzaldehyde toluene causes sperm damage and hormone disruption, and there's been links to cancer as well. Then we brush our teeth with our toothpaste that contains fluoride and SLS. We eat fresh food, which is supposed to be nourishing for us, but it contains pesticides and herbicides and heavy metals. If we're eating processed foods, then we're exposed to even more chemicals, including aspartame, high fructose corn syrup, sodium benzoate, nitrates and nitrites, MSG, seed oils, colorants, preservatives, and iodine, which is not bioavailable inside the body. Then we get in our car and drive to work or drive to the store, and we're exposed to exhaust fumes, which contain VOCs and carbon monoxide and ozone and flame retardants and potentially lead. Then we're drinking tap water or water that's not sufficiently filtered, and we're getting exposed to fluoride and chlorine and lead and mercury and arsenic and DDT and medications and hormones and many other toxins in the water supply. So what? So it's not just about one toxin. It's about the accumulation of toxins that you use daily, leading to issues over time. So my belief is that toxin overload is the leading cause of infertility issues to date. Combine this with stress and nervous system dysregulation, and you have a toxic soup. And that toxic soup is leading us down the path of infertility. There are some experts that estimate that by 2050, humans will be fully infertile. There will be no sperm and no egg. There will be no babies. The chronic illness and the chronic mental illness burden will continue to rise until our healthcare system goes into full collapse. So what can we do about it? On a global scale, it's harder, but on an individual scale, it can be easier. We can do toxin reduction in our home, and you can swap out your personal care products, which will keep you safer and keep your unborn baby safer. And note, this is not meant to overwhelm. It feels overwhelming, and sometimes it does to me as well, because I wish the world was a different place, but we can only do the best we can with our current environmental situation. There's no such thing as perfection, and stress and worry are just as toxic, if not more toxic, than the toxins themselves. So please keep that in mind and just use the resources that you have and do the best that you can. So let's go through some common toxin exposures and potential solutions. So personal care products. Personal care products are often laden with tons of toxins, parabens and sulfates and phthalates and formaldehyde and fragrances and colors and all kinds of stuff. All of these have links to as many different chronic diseases as you can think of: fertility issues, tumors, immune system dysfunction, asthma, hormone disruption, cancer, infertility. The list is incredibly long. A good source for you to utilize is the EWG, or Environmental Working Group. They provide rating scores for various personal care products as well as cleaning products. And there is also a list of certified EWG products that they have certified are an A rating, which means not toxic to human health. And so it's a great place to start if swapping out products is new for you, or if you're wanting to see if the products that you're using are toxic. Switching out your personal care products will make a massive difference in your toxic burden. As you saw from that scenario, as you walk through your day, many of the chemicals you're exposed to are simply from your cleaning products and your toxic care products. So just making that swap, you're reducing your toxic load by a massive amount. Personal care products could include shampoos, soaps, conditioners, makeup, skincare, lotions, deodorants, nail polish, toothpaste, dishwasher soap, laundry detergents, and stain removers. These are just some examples of things that you might want to switch out to healthier options. So cleaning products are a huge source of toxic burden in the home. There was a recent NRDC analysis that identified 45 chemicals commonly found in US indoor dust. In this study, 10 different phthalates, fragrances, flame retardants, and phenols were found in a whopping 90 to 100% of samples, which is crazy. These chemicals slough off from personal care products, furniture, and plastics, and have been linked to cancer, reproductive harm, and hormone disruption. They're especially dangerous to young children. Imagine that children are at dust level height. They're also crawling around on the floor and playing on the floor more often. And so you definitely want to be more careful about the products you use, especially around children. The Environmental Working Group is a great organization. So when you go to their website, I just chose this product, Lysol, which got a score of a D. And then it tells you why it got that score. So it goes through every single chemical and the score that it gets and what the areas of concern are. So this is a fantastic website if you're not familiar with it. And then you can just literally do a search. So I can search for bleach here. And all of the different cleaning products with bleach in it is going to appear. And it always starts at A, and then the further you get down, the worse it gets, all the way to F. And the EWG, like I said, also has a certification program where companies can go through EWG scrutiny to get this EWG label, which confirms that it is a non-toxic product for human health. So this is a great website to help you with your process of transitioning to non-toxic products. Then we have our mattresses and our bedding. And you think when we sleep is the major time where we do most of our detoxification. So you want your sleep space to be like a sanctuary. So first you look at mattresses. Most conventional mattresses on the market emit very toxic VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, especially those made with polyurethane foam. Most of them contain flame retardants. Many also have adhesives and phthalates. And so these continue to off-gas for months or years potentially. There are lots and lots of non-toxic mattress brands now, and so there's tons for you to choose from, including Awara, Avocado, Plank, Plush Beds, Birch, Brentwood Home. There's so many. You can just do your research and find out, which one is right for you. It's also a great idea to opt for organic cotton, linen, or bamboo sheets, since they all have a much lower toxin load. And so again, sleep is a time for detoxification. So you always want to try to reduce toxicity in the bedroom as much as possible. You might also want to consider organic cotton or bamboo pajamas. Candles and air fresheners, I would say that you should just not use any of them, to be honest. We don't need to be surrounded by scents all of the time. Candle wicks often contain lead, and the paraffin wax often contains a chemical called benzene, which is a known human carcinogen. Many contain synthetic fragrances, which have phthalates and other volatile organic compounds. Commercial air fresheners can also contain VOCs and phthalates. And so if you must have some sort of scent, there are more natural candle options that are made with organic cotton wicks and pure beeswax. And so those would be better options. And then you can also diffuse essential oils if you must have a fragrance. But again, you're wanting to try to be mostly fragrance free, especially once you have the baby. Babies are much more sensitive to smells than adults are. Botox. I put this one on here just to ruffle feathers. But Botox is a very controversial substance. There is evidence. I mean, Botox is toxic to the human body, right? If you were to inject it not into the muscle tissue, you would have, full body paralysis. So there are long-term adverse events associated with the therapeutic and cosmetic use of Botox. There's a good resource on Instagram. The account called NeverTox is a wonderful resource. It's generally considered safe, but with more widespread use, it is raising safety concerns. I have had many people that have had dysphagia from Botox, generalized muscle weakness, sometimes drooping, which of course many of these things will resolve, but some of them do not. And some people have some permanent dysfunction in their muscles or nerves because of Botox. So I would argue to not use it, but if you must use it, make sure you go to a very skilled practitioner and just know that it is a toxin to the body. Here's another case series and a review of the literature for systemic weakness after therapeutic injections of Botox. So you can get systemic weakness even though somebody is injecting it locally. So just kind of keep that in mind, that this is a risk, just like breast implants are a risk. You want to minimize as much as possible your use of Botox. Okay, carpets. So carpets contain tons of nasty stuff: formaldehyde, flame retardant, styrene, all of the stain resistors. Carpet tends to be incredibly dirty because you can't clean it like you can hardwood floors unless you kind of get it wet and then suck up the moisture. And then that's also a mold or a mildew risk. And so I don't recommend having carpets in your home. I recommend switching them out to hardwoods if at all possible. Other flooring such as vinyl are equally toxic, with plastics and adhesive that also emit harmful VOCs for sometimes up to years. They now have low or no VOC flooring. So if you are looking to replace your flooring or rip out the carpet, then I would look into the options on the market for low or no VOC. And then in terms of area rugs, so area rugs are also incredibly toxic with all of the same things that regular carpet has in it, but there are lots of non-toxic brands now, such as Lorena Canals, the Citizen Tree, Parachute, and the EWG also has free guides for toxin-free household products as well. Furniture is probably the most challenging thing because there's not a lot of green furniture on the market. And then of course, everybody has different styles and what they want. So almost all furniture contain flame retardants, especially if you're in North America, where flame retardants are obligatory to put into furniture. But there are some flame retardant free furniture, where they just have to label it flame retardant free, and you have to kind of take on the risks of what that means. But it's virtually impossible to find a completely toxin-free furniture option, or not that I have found. Unstained wood is a good option, or stained with a VOC-free stain, or simply a beeswax-based stain. Couches and chairs are much harder because most need to be built with adhesives or polyurethane foams. Many are not built with like natural latex, the way that mattresses can be built, because it would make the furniture extremely heavy. So I have yet to find a company that does completely non-toxic furniture. There are non-toxic wooden furniture options. That is much easier, but in terms of upholstered furniture, it's much, much harder. But you want to be especially careful with this in the baby's room if you're building a nursery, to make sure that you're getting all VOC-free, completely non-toxic products in the nursery, as babies will be more sensitive since they're, developing. Also, watch out for stain-resistant sprays. Many companies will give you the option of them to put a stain-resistant spray on the furniture. You do not want this, even though it will help to maintain your furniture looking nice. They are laden with toxins that you absorb through your skin. So some furniture companies that you can look into are Avocado, Medley, Maven Home, and then some of the West Elm products are relatively low toxin. Oral care products, so you'll get more information about this in the oral care lecture, but you basically want to make sure that you're avoiding fluoride as well as SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate. Again, the EWG is a great resource here, but some vetted brands are Boca, Super Teeth, and Risewell. They're all great fluoride-free and SLS-free options. Seafood. Oh, this one makes me sad. Because I think seafood was previously an incredibly healthy food. And now I would probably argue that the less seafood, the better, unfortunately, unless you're eating very, very small fish like sardines or anchovies or some herring. Because the amount of microplastics and mercury within fish now is incredibly high. One of the ways that people get mercury poisoning is from eating regular fish, you know, on a daily or weekly basis. While there are concerns about other forms of protein, like now there's arsenic in our chicken, those concerns are not nearly as high as they are with seafood. So I would just lower your intake if you are eating a lot of seafood and err towards the smaller fish that are in this category here. So sardines are one of the best things you can eat for health, as well as anchovies and herring here, and then some trout as well. Make sure if you are eating seafood, that it's always wild caught and not farm raised. You never, ever want to eat farm raised fish. Those are basically just a toxic soup. All right, clothing. This one is also difficult, just like furniture is difficult. There aren't yet a ton of brands that provide toxin-free clothing, but we're seeing it more and more. However, a really good starting place would be to at least change out your activewear, especially from companies like Athleta, Vuori, Lululemon, where there was actually a study that found that many of these athletic wear brands have hormone disrupting chemicals like BPA up to 40 times the legal limit, which is crazy. And so you think you're wearing these clothes when you are doing something good for your body, exercising. When that happens, you're vasodilating, you're opening your pores. And so those toxins are even more likely to get into the body. So anything with stain or water resistance or sort of that more polyester plastic-based material, you don't want to wear when you're exercising, even though it's really comfortable to wear. There are organic activewear companies now, Mate the Label, Packed, and groceries. There are many others. These are just a few that I have personally used and like. Of course, it's not as comfortable when you're sweating to wear organic cotton because polyester and these synthetic fabrics will actually dry way faster. In cotton, of course, you're just kind of sitting in your own sweat. But for me, I really try to avoid plastics and petrochemicals while I'm doing my workout. Food. Buying organic food will decrease your exposure to pesticides and herbicides, but it's not perfect. People think they're completely sheltered by it, but some pesticides can take upwards of 10 years to fully break down in the earth. And in order to get organic farming certification from the USDA, you only need to have been doing organic farming for 3 years. So you'll still have some exposure, but it's going to be much, much less. So it is preferred. If you can't afford organic food or completely organic food, the ones at the top of the list will also be located on the EWG's website. They're called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. The Dirty Dozen are the top 12 foods that have the most pesticide residue on them. And the Clean 15 are the cleanest 15 produce foods with the least amount of pesticides on them. So you'll also get some pesticide and herbicide drift from neighboring farms, but again, you're doing the best that you can. Obviously, growing your own food at your own house in your own organic farm with your own organic soil is the best thing you can do, but it's not always feasible for all of us. You also want to opt for GMO-free if that is an option for you. If it has an organic label, just know that it already is GMO-free. So that is part of the organic certification, is that it cannot contain any GMOs. And, GMOs, what's the deal with them? There's concerns mainly over how the altered DNA is going to be expressed in the human body. There's also the potential that these new proteins that are synthesized from the genetic modification of these substances are going to have unpredictable allergenic effects. So especially things that already generally produce allergies in humans, like milk, eggs, nuts, wheat, legumes, fish, and shellfish. If those are genetically modified, they're going to have more risk of a severe allergenic response than potentially other foods. For me, I just like to avoid all GMOs. I just don't think there's enough data about them and their safety in human health. And there is enough concern for me that it's not something I want to be eating. All right, indoor air quality. So we spend over 90% of our lives indoors, and indoor air quality actually tends to be poorer than outdoor air quality. Perhaps there's a slight difference if you live in a giant polluted city, but in general, our indoor air quality tends to be quite poor. So things you can do to reduce the contaminants in your air, of course, reduce your toxic cleaning products, make sure you have radon testing done. Radon poisoning is the second leading cause of lung cancer. When I saw that research, I was like, wow, I didn't realize it was such a big deal, but it is. So make sure you're doing radon testing. Make sure you have carbon monoxide detectors in your home. Buy air filtration systems. So there are whole house air filtration systems that you install into your HVAC unit. And then there's also individual air filtration systems that you can put in each room. And everybody's circumstance will be different. And so the company you choose to get your air filtration from should be able to talk to you on the phone and talk you through some of your options. I've put some of my vetted resources on the resource list, but again, there are many great air filtration companies, and some people choose to go with a local provider. Make sure you keep the home well cleaned and dusted and decluttered. Lots of clutter will build up dust and will trap in any of the chemicals that you're exposed to through furniture and other products. Make sure you have proper venting of your stovetop and any heaters, gas, or wood stoves. Any of the appliances not working properly can emit carbon monoxide and other pollutants. With the carbon monoxide detectors, you will detect some of that, but some of these other pollutants you will not. And so just make sure you have good venting. Always take off your shoes before going inside. The bottom of your shoes are actually dirtier than a public toilet. I mean, just think about when you're walking outside and you're stepping on cigarette butts and dog poop and who knows what else, all of the fumes and the pollutants, and then you're basically dragging them through your house. Check for lead in your home if it was built before 1978. Oftentimes there was lead either in the pipes or in the paint. You also want to control indoor humidity to between 25 to 45% to prevent mold growth. A simple way to do that is to buy for like $20, you can get a pack of 4 humidity readers and you put them in your upstairs and your downstairs in various rooms. Of course, the bathroom is the area that is most difficult to have low humidity, especially right after a shower. Consider whole house dehumidifiers, or at least dehumidifiers in bathrooms in places where high humidity levels are an issue. And then obviously remediate any water leaks to prevent mold toxicity. Generally, there are very poor mold remediation companies where they just come and basically paint a mold resistant paint over it. That is not a solution. You actually need to cut out any of the wet damaged materials and replace it with new materials. And you'll get a bit more about that in the home remediation section. So light toxicity as well. People don't generally think of this. There are amazing books all about light toxicity out there. But blue light that's emitted from light bulbs and screens, they decrease our melatonin and increase our cortisol level. So even if we're not under, an emotional stressor, we're getting those stressors from light sources and other toxins in the home. So being exposed to these blue light wavelengths in the evening is incredibly disruptive to circadian rhythm and therefore detoxification. So you can actually switch out your light bulbs for either red colored light bulbs, just plain old red incandescent light bulbs that you can get for a couple of bucks. You can switch those out. Some people, because they don't want to switch them out in the ceiling, they just get a couple of lamps and put the red light bulbs in the lamps. And that's a way to go about it. So you don't have to change your whole house into, the red light district. If it's not possible to switch them all out, you can also get blue light blocking glasses. I have blue light blocking glasses. I find them useful. We did switch out some of our ceiling lights for red lights, so we can just use the red lights in the evening in both the bathroom and our living room. But if for some reason one night I do have to look at a screen before bed, then I always put on my blue light blocking glasses. It's a wonderful investment. You simply put them on at sundown and you wear them until you go to bed. Also, there are blue light blocking screen protectors that you can get for your phone as well as your computer. And those are useful if you need to be on technology even during the day, because you're getting exposed to these rays during the day as well. Don't be on screens for 2 to 3 hours before bed. And if you live in a neighborhood with street lamps on at nighttime, you can consider blackout shades. The darker, the better when you sleep. Some people even put blackout shades on their windows in the living room, so they can start blocking out that light before they go to bed. All right. And this has even become really mainstream, this idea about blue light toxicity. Even this webpage is from Harvard, talking about how blue light, kind of has a dark side and will affect our health. Pesticide and herbicide use, this likely goes without saying, but it's vital that you don't treat your lawn, home garden, or home with pesticides and herbicides. They are carcinogenic. You don't want to use them inside your home or outside your home. I know you can't affect what your neighbors do, but some neighbors are more open, and so you can have that conversation with them if you do live close to neighbors. But at least not using them in your own home is important. There are other ways to get rid of ants or other bugs that you might have in your home that are not toxic, such as crushed lavender petals, neem oil, and diatomaceous earth. Also, borax is a great natural option that we always use if we get ants in the house. You can also use vinegar on weeds or in other places in the home where potentially ants come in. Sometimes that will deter them as well. Cookware can be a major source of heavy metal and toxic exposure because it's something you're using daily, just like personal care products. And so you want to think about what toxins your cookware might have. Of course, the most dangerous type of cookware is always non-stick, especially if it contains Teflon. The company who makes Teflon was actually sued for millions of dollars after it was proven that it was causing cancer, and yet somehow Teflon is still on the market. But really anything non-stick, even if they claim it to be green or clean, would really raise an eyebrow. I don't use any non-stick anything in my home. Coated ceramic pans can contain quite a bit of lead, so we don't recommend that. Most people are exposed to coated ceramic through crock pots or slow cookers. They do make slow cookers now that are stainless steel, which is a healthier option. Some stainless steel does contain a high quantity of lead, so you want to look at the lead to steel option and make sure that you're getting a lower nickel content. The one thing about nickel is that you generally need some nickel in your cookware because otherwise it would rust very easily. Also, copper pots and pans, I don't recommend at all. Copper toxicity is a major issue and one of the leading causes of infertility in the mineral balancing world. And so anytime you're cooking in copper pots and pans, you're going to leach copper as well as other heavy metals into your food, especially if you're cooking with something acidic like tomatoes. All aluminum cookware and aluminum foil, that should be completely avoided. Many stainless steel pots and pans will have an aluminum core, and I think that's okay as long as the actual stainless steel fully coats the aluminum core and there's no risk that the aluminum is touching your food. Cast iron, stainless steel, glass, and enameled ceramics tend to be the best options. Some brands are located in the PDF, but the three most popular ones are the Lodge cast iron, the 360 cookware, which is stainless steel. It does have some nickel, and it does have an aluminum core, but it is considered a surgical grade stainless steel, which is a better option. And then Extrema, which is ceramic. It is a little bit of a learning curve to learn how to cook with ceramic, but that is a cleaner option as well. All right, then we have plastics. So you want to switch out your plastic Tupperware containers for glass containers. Most of the glass containers also have a plastic top, and that's okay as long as it doesn't touch the food. So I always make sure that there's like a little bit of breathing room between my food and the plastic top. You never want to use any plastic wraps around your food. Plastic wraps are generally actually incredibly toxic and will sometimes melt onto the food if you put food in there that is hot. And then you never want to microwave anything in plastic because it will emit BPA, BPS, and other dangerous chemicals into your food. And then microwaves. This is a very controversial topic. I actually sort of dove in and tried to look at some of the literature. There are some studies that show nutrient loss anywhere between 5 and 40% of certain foods, while other studies show minimal nutrient loss from microwaving. Some studies cite concern around irradiating the food, even if it's non-ionizing radiation, while others report no concerns. For me personally, we don't have a microwave. I don't use a microwave, but if you're going to use it, I would just use it minimally and definitely not daily. And I would probably err on the side of not microwaving your baby's food. And so I generally reheat mine in an oven. I have like a large toaster oven type thing. It's a Ninja, and it reheats the food pretty quickly. And since I use glass Tupperware, it's easy to just put them right in there to reheat. If you do microwave, make sure you're only microwaving in glass and never, ever, ever plastic. All right, so some takeaways. We can't fully be toxin-free. That is just a misnomer. Literally everything in modern society has some level of toxic burden to human health. And so we reduce wherever we can. We choose options when we can. We replace items when we need to or when we can. But that when you start building a nursery, once you do become pregnant, keep toxicity in mind. A nursery should contain the smallest amount of toxins possible. So if you're doing an area rug, make sure it's a clean area rug. If you're doing a crib and a crib mattress, make sure those mattresses are certified organic, are Green Guard Gold certified, and don't contain flame retardants. The same for car seats. The same for any toys you're going to bring into the room. Just try to reduce as much as possible. Even when we got my son his dresser drawers, we made sure it was completely raw wood, and then we finished it with beeswax. So there are options out there for a toxin-free nursery, and ours was about as toxin-free as I think you can get. So just keep that in mind. And then don't stress, we can only do the best we can. Don't overwhelm yourself with all of this. Just swap out for cleaner products whenever you can. All right, I will see you in the next lecture.